This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. James, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. This is awesome.
Yay! Okay, so we're going to start today with a game. Let our creative juices flowing. As you are creative, I think this might be fun for you. I hope. So the game is called Rebrand This. So, we're going to take a famous brand and we're going to have you come up with like a new strategy to bring it to life. I know you're creative, so this could involve the creativity around it. It's whatever strategy you want to take on your end. But so I'm going to give you one. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Okay. Blockbuster.
Blockbuster. Well, let's see. If I had to rebrand it now, I mean, strategy was off, right? They weren't cloud-based. They wanted to rent video. So, although that is kitschy again. So, I mean, I think they probably could do a nostalgic launch, kind of like bring back the 90s, because I think they're endearing right now. There's a lot of people that are collecting of course records, but I think, music tapes and stuff. That's kind of back in style. And then I think that might catch on again if you kind of like launch with like videotapes. That kind of service might be really cool. I'd see people wearing Blockbuster shirts again, and kind of like, maybe kind of like their model has a little bit kind of like technology infused back into it, but maybe the VHS comes back and it's just like the VHS players are more technical, have AI enabled or something on them. I don't know, but I just kind of feel like maybe Blockbuster is endearing in it, and it's kind of like when you see the Netflix come out with like shows about Blockbuster and about the nostalgia. It's something that's really endearing to people, and especially like creative people that love to kind of like take a trip to the past, and even people like born after Blockbuster, right? It's kind of like, what is that all about? What is that nostalgia about? I want to see a VHS tape. I want to see fidelity, So I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't touch it at all. Maybe I just bring it back and rebrand it the way it was before. Kind of say Blockbuster. I think that's what. I don't think I would try to like modernize it to the new times. I think it's icon era. Yeah.
I think that is an incredible idea, because I do agree with you that like nostalgia, I think nostalgia always hits, and I think that trends always come back. I think it happens constantly, but I think that for Blockbuster, there is like this, people just think about either their childhoods or like a different part of their life that they'd really love to bring back sometimes. And I think that physical media is definitely on the rise, because I think people are almost fearful of the digital age in a way, of the idea that there's certain shows and movies and different things like that that aren't attached to a streaming service, and therefore are like lost in the abyss, or there's certain versions of things that are not included on the streaming service because of certain I don't know, like different views of the streaming service or whatever it may be. And it's so interesting that if you have the original take, then you have you can still see it how you did when you were a kid or whatever.
Like locked footage and collector's editions and stuff. Like it's like jazz, right? Like it's like records that are, you go through the record cabinet and you find old records that haven't been listened to in 80 years, and you pop them on the record player. Like that sort of thing is really interesting, right? It's just another place that we're so digital these days. Like it's like everything's on your phone, everything. It's kind of nice to, I remember when I was a kid, on the weekend, go load up on tapes, right? And you take your tapes home and you'd watch all your tapes, and, God forbid you didn't bring them back the next week because you're paying the late fees, and all of a sudden, you're in a lot of trouble. So, I mean, that whole era was kind of cool to bring it back, just as so everyone kind of does it again. Yeah.
No, I definitely agree. I think it would be really lovely to bring it back. I think that physical media is something that is so valuable now. And it kind of does suck that they're not making as much as they used to, because now we don't even get even like newer movies. Maybe they're not even available on a physical tape or a tapes. I don't know if they're really making tapes anymore, but CDs. And
Mhm.
it is something that's a little it's disappointing, because it's even if you like something nowadays, maybe you can't even get a physical copy of it. I would like to investigate that, actually. I'm wondering if they're actually making CDs from everything that they still create even now, because I'm thinking that I guess I'm not looking for it because everything's so easily accessible.
Yeah. I don't even know if they print VHS anymore. They do. Mine.
I don't think they do.
That would be amazing, right? Like brand new movies that are coming out, you can get them on VHS. Like
That would be incredible. Like those, I another thing I miss about the era is the specialized themed TVs for VHSs to go into. I do
oh
miss
yeah,
it.
had the little slot in them already.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool to bring back to Best Buy, right? All of a sudden you have like,
People
4K like video enable VHS.
they're not capitalizing upon the nostalgia as much as they should be. I think there's a missed
Somebody will
opportunity.
bring it back. I think somebody will kind of see that there's a niche there that they should buy. I think like I live in a niche. I live in a 19 house built in 1905, and all my furniture is like so I'm trapped in the 50s. I'm a mid-century modern guy.
I really love that for architecturally. When I look at a house, that's something that I look for. Something that doesn't look. I think the modern architecture nowadays is vile. Maybe that's just a hot take for me. But I love even so many different eras of like the 70s, the 90s,
Yeah.
the 50s, 60s, of just like different homes. I think that this like white marble looking, like all these houses are the millennial gray.
Black metal roof, white houses, kind of thing.
Ugh.
Contemporary ranch style.
I just don't. I just I hate that they said this. I don't know why warm colors stopped being in for some reason. I miss the old times.
Yeah. I mean, I love the 70s. I think like, me and my wife talking, she's just like, she would love like a 70s house to kind of buy like
My favorite.
mirrored glass and those kind of like cabinetry, like really like Scarface's house. We want to live at
Don't actually. Well, we just talked about a bunch of things that are unrelated to. Well, I guess it's creativity. So I think it's
Yeah.
related to creative. But I just want to get into the podcast a little more, talk about you a little more. So to everyone at home watching, welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's partnership coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, James from JA Studio. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited to get into our conversation and learn more. So, could you first talk about yourself, introduce yourself maybe a little differently than I would, introduce your brand, and talk about what you're doing today?
I should have wore a branded T-shirt, huh? JA
A
Studios.
lot of people do that, but most people don't. So don't worry.
Yes. So JA Studios was founded about a year ago. Kind of like, I found myself kind of like trying to find my next thing, and I'd always been pretty wimpy about kind of turning to freelance or try to start my own business. But I was just kind of like, it's kind of now or never kind of moment, when I always thought it was just really difficult to handle my finances.
Oh,
I founded J Studios last year. It was kind of like on a down economy. I was kind of freelancing, and I decided it's kind of like now or never to start my own brand capability. And I've worked in the industry long enough that I have a couple contacts, and I kind of hit up my contacts on LinkedIn, and I was fortunate enough to kind of stay pretty busy, and kind of establish JA Studios. Um, I worked on, is it going in and out? Do I sound okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, you're good. You're great.
All right. So, one of my first projects is I picked up some work from McCann. I love McCann. I worked at McCann for 8 years and folks, and they kept me busy. And then I did a little work for Havas. I did a little work for a company called New Leaf. They're an agricultural startup, and I rebranded them. Kind of like, heads to tails. I like new logo, new colors, new fonts, new iconography, new everything, like new, entirely new. And they're like a VC backed startup, and I was able to do their packaging and everything. So, it's kind of like amazing that we can help companies and entrepreneurs find their way and kind of establish their goods so they can be profitable. Capitalism, love it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm all about capitalism. So yeah, JA Studios is my love. It's branding, it's brand worlds. I do a lot of brand world, and this is kind of what I really love is I establish kind of the North Star for advertising. Like a strategist will come to me, an agency will come to me, and they're like, here's the top tier thinking. We're, the client and everything, and we want to establish it, and we want it to look like this. And I'll come back and I'll establish like really crafted design exploration, illustrations, and I'll pull stuff from all over. I call it jazz. I'll grab stuff from all over the place, and I'll make these mood boards, and then I'll kind of like, apply more of a scientific kind of treatment to them. And my approach is being like modernism and, I don't know, simplified, something. I typically go and I name them something so that it's something that they can kind of aligns with their strategy, and they could kind of adopt it and maybe kind of Frankenstein some pieces together that they like. And it's really successful. It's kind of proved to be a way that I can create brand worlds effectively. So that's JE Studio, logos, branding, and everything. But I'm like a technology guy. So um, I love AI. I mean, I've been doing a lot of Gen AI work, a lot of motion work. So, I'm the kind of person you didn't have to like nudge into AI. I just kind of gravitated towards it naturally. I started using it. As soon as Midjourney came out, I started tapping into it, and you look at it now, then to now, it's quite different. But, so that kind of led to, I do a lot of like AI experimentation, and work vision models, and I've been working with predictive models, and, agentic AI and that sort of thing. So it's like, I don't really have a specialty. I love mid-century modernism. I love to renovate houses. I love to build brand worlds. I love to tinker with AI. I love like drones. I love 3D printing, laser engraving, green printing. Like I'm just kind of like a little bit of everything. So it's really, I've had to really focus here to try to be focused and say, JA Studio is branding. We do brand worlds. And then I create another company. It's like company does AI, trying to segment myself so people find that need and kind of reach out to those entities. And as far as like my overall, I've been in this industry probably my whole life. I started kind of illustrating when I was really, really young, like early James. So I kind of knew that I was going to do art my whole life. And, so when they say how much experience do you have, I'm like, well, my whole life I've been a designer. So, professionally probably since my early 20s. So it's, been about 30 years that I've been a professional designer. It's been a good
That's
spell. I love it.
So your motto is live by brand, which I love a motto. So um but I'm wondering in what ways do you feel loving your brand is important to its success?
So love thy brand kind of means a couple things. Um, I think love thy brand also means like your love, like you're at the altar of brand, right? There's people that just love Nike so much and everything that's branded Nike. And it's just a pair of sneakers, right? But you kind of just buy into the mystique of what a brand is. And I think like love thy brand also is people. Like we're each brands in ourselves, right? Especially with social media and trying to be relevant on social media, having to build your brands and do all that stuff. So I see the power of brands. And so it's like, and then I'm a brand builder, right? And the thing is people come to me and they're like, can you build my foundation? Can you build my logos, color. And I also like imbue that with emotion, right? Like if you want to be an emotional brand, you want to be dynamic, energetic, you want to be joyful, optimistic, like those are all things that need to be grounded in the meaning of the brand, right? And those are the things that strategists do. They kind of pick apart and they build it back up so that brands know what they stand for in the brand personality. But I do that visually, right? So it's like I establish color theory, right? Like if you come to me and you're like, oh, I'm a passive kind of chill brand, you'll have muted, more chill colors. If you want to be youthful and exuberant, I'll throw in some bright yellows, some bright blues, some greens. You know what I mean? Like, and it's all psychology of visuals, and I think that's part of what we build into it. I'm not sure the normal consumer understands that, but it's very much like intentional, the emotions they're feeling when they look. So love, that's where love thy brand comes from. Like you come to me, I'm hopefully, go through the process and you're going to love thy brand and other people are going to also love your brand and be successful and $1 billion and everyone high fives. I live in Detroit and I'm seeing that it's snowing outside and it's bumming me out because it was like 70 yesterday.
Oh no, it was also 70 yesterday here. I'm in Philadelphia. I think it is supposed to snow like later this week though, so it's a crapshoot apparently.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Nice.
But I do love that being your motto. I also think that it's great to understand a brand and the vibe that it kind of gives off, because I do think psychologically focusing on the consumer and what vibe the brand gives off in order to reach the consumer that they're looking for is really great to create that, because I think that a lot of people have a vision for what their brand should look like, but they're not necessarily considering the type of consumer that they're looking for, whereas they think something just looks nice, and that's not necessarily like they want the client to love their brand and they also want to love their brand. And I think that there's like a balance there of creating something beautiful and something that will also attract people to you.
Yeah, like I've had clients come to me before in big companies, and I just kind of tell them, like, I think the key word is vibe, and I keep telling them, like, the vibes you're throwing off are not welcoming. I don't want to welcome you into my home and have your furniture in my house because coming off a little bit kind of like standoffish, kind of like
Mhm.
I can't acquire you because I can't afford you, or you don't match my aesthetic. And I'm like, there's brands that do it really, really well. Like I love Bombas. I think Bombas is doing a wonderful job with their like soft socks and the envisioning bunnies in their socks and all the like it's surrealism. And then the music is ethereal. And those are the things that kind of like I see what they're doing. They're inviting me into their soft, comfy world, And that pertains to everything. Like every product that comes out, you want the consumer to see it and say, I want to become part of that, or I see myself in that product and I want that product here with you. You know what I mean? It's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to accomplish. And I think a brand takes many, many kind of like different approaches. Like it's the music, it's the color, it's the texture, it's the storytelling, it's everything, the voices, the voiceover. There's just so many things that just have to hit and be perfect. And I think I often, say this, like people that win a Cannes Lion should win a Royal Crown too, because you have to kind of like, you have to maneuver clients, maneuver everything working against you to ultimately get to this thing that is magic. And it takes so much fighting to get to that magic. I mean, unless everyone's on board and you have the perfect agency on the planet, perfect client. But usually it's a bunch of hurdles to have that beautiful nugget of creation. And, a lot of people had to fight to keep that beautiful and clean. They deserve more client.
Yeah, there's so many factors that you have to consider when creating a brand that are working against you or maybe not ideal. And it's something that, and also balancing that creativity while also being authentic as well. I mean, I think that a lot of people are being creative, but they don't realize that they get influence from somewhere else. And I think that everyone gets influence from somewhere. So that's not really not being creative or not being original. But I also think that it's like you want it to stand out always. That's usually what people are looking for. And that's also difficult to balance with all of these other things of like consumer behavior and what personally you like as creating the brand. All of these different things, but it's also um, being authentic, but also being original, which is so difficult sometimes when people don't realize that they're taking influence from so many different places.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of designers and I've kind of mentored a lot of designers, and my whole thing is like I learned early on that I'm not gonna create anything that's been done ever before. Like a lot of great art has been done before. It's hard to like cut out and just be like, I will never done. You know what I mean? I'm a snowflake. But I think more of what we do is I call it jazz, right? So it's like we're being influenced by eras, by colors, visuals, our favorite illustrators, our favorite photographers. And the way that, I always tell them, you're not going to copy this. You're going to take little influences and then you're going to like filter it through your body and then you're going to output it through your hands. And that'll be the original you because you're going to put a spin on it. So don't try to just, I used to be really hard on myself about not copying anybody. I had a creative director that told me there is no original anymore. Like everything's been done before. So
Yeah.
good luck with that. So I took that really to heart like 20 years ago, and I started kind of this method of like, no, I'm not gonna be that hard on myself. I'm gonna like, for like fonts. I love typography. I'll use a font instead of making a font. I might edit the font a little bit. I might add some technique to it, but I'm not gonna go build a font every time I need a font. That's kind of it. You know what I mean? Like, and I love to work with illustrators and photographers. And I am an illustrator, I am a photographer, but they're just people that just, inspired me and they just do such beautiful work. So that's when I put my art director hat on and I'm just like, I'm gonna hire this illustrator and I'm gonna work with this typographer and we're gonna create jazz together and the output's just gonna be magic. I love to do that a lot.
Yeah, one of the I read a book in college called The Art of Stealing, I believe.
Mm.
And that really changed my perspective on like creativity because I do think that there's a way of your influence that is still like original, and original is such an arbitrary word, so I think that that's difficult to use in that scenario. But because again, nothing is really original, as we both kind of touched on. But I think that is something that's it's really cool because there's like blatant copying, which is different than just, having your own spin on something or doing something differently, but it's the same kind of template or something like that. And I think that there's a way of feeling tastefully, which is maybe not, feeling is also the word that people that are puts people off, but I think it's more like
Yeah.
influence because art is you intake so much information all the time. You can't necessarily even have an original thought, I think sometimes because you are
Yeah.
always taking in information. So I think it's just the way that you spin something and put it out there that is what's important, I suppose.
So your stealing thought kind of makes me think about Gen AI and just kind of the overall perception. There's a lot of illustrators and designers that I work with that are kind of like guys falling. AI stealing my
Mm.
jobs. They're stealing creativity. They're using data to scrape these illustrator styles and all this kind of stuff. And until they pay them, and then it's fine. But I think the thing about it is I also am aware of that, right? Like I don't want Gen AI tool to do the work for me because like the layers of creativity that I put on Gen AI make it mine and make it my style. You know what I mean? So I think prompting is an art form. I think getting the most out of Gen AI tools is an art form. Then I think taking an output, cropping it, setting some type on it, putting it in a special place on a t-shirt or in a design, adding more to it, building, seed files to be able to reproduce it, replicate it, add motion. I think that's where art comes through. That's where it's a tool that we're just dialing in and just like it makes you excited and it makes you kind of want to use it, change it. I think it's a positive thing. I don't see AI as kind of a dangerous thing. In fact, I have a company called Killer Robot. That's a list. And we make AI tools and less. Um, so that's kind of where I stand. But I'm like I love technology. I remember I was at a photo shoot years ago and we were using like an 8x10 camera to shoot a sunset on a golf course or sunrise on a golf course. And I remember the photographer, he's digital cameras are coming out, end of us. and he was just so bummed out. Oh, and he scared me, and I was bummed out. I'm like, digital cameras happen, and now it's like digital cameras are everywhere. It's like in our phones and everything, but still, there's a cachet about shooting film is so beautiful. VHS thing, effectively all over. It's just so beautiful because the way it captures, the way that you can see the image in a big camera like that is just something that you have to see in your lifetime. So I think there's a place for film, there's a place for digital, there's a place for human illustrators, robot illustrators. I kind of feel like we're all just one big mash and jazz, right?
Yeah, I think the creative world sometimes is at war with each other for no reason. I think that there's so many levels to it, like what you said about like digital camera versus film. I think that there's so many photographers that obviously film has, I think a lot of people view it as like a labor of love because it is a lot more
Gorgeous.
than just snapping a picture and going
It's with such intent to wait and take one long shutter picture is just, you've captured a moment that it's not like you could shoot 1,000 frames. Like it's just it's with such intent, and it builds such character and depth. It's stunning.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of people who do that kind of photography look down on maybe someone that does a digital photograph but edits it to look similar to that kind of way. And I just think personally, and I'm not in that world, so I have no reason to be angry at anyone, but that it's just a different art form almost. Like I don't think that one takes away from the other. I think that editing something to look in a way that you want is still artistic because you are doing steps to create something. And I don't think that there's a reason to compare all the time. I think that obviously if you're pretending something is what it's not, is I guess different of the idea of this was taken on film and it was that's a different thing. You're just lying. But I think that there's not a reason to be at war constantly for different art forms that take less work or do more or whatever it may be, because you don't know what goes into that. And there are things, art is so objective. The banana being duct taped to the canvas in, I think it was New York City. What? there's so many things that take absolutely, that seem even to take absolutely no time or effort, but actually do. And then there's things that take absolutely no time or effort that seem like they did. And I think that art is like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as many people say, and that it's not really necessary to go at war constantly with creatives because people are just creative in different ways. And yes, sometimes that takes less work, but if you're capitalizing on something that takes less work, maybe people should be looking towards, like, maybe people should looking at you for how are you doing that? I guess, I don't know. I think it's all very, I think people are angry sometimes when they're wasting their energy on being angry.
Social media kind of like, you always have somebody post something that's just beautiful and you can tell that it was a lot of work they put in an AI. And then, somebody will come in and just like burst their bubble and say, good, they're stealing our jobs, da, 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 da. And it's just kind of like, I think there's room enough for everything. And it's not, this sounds like it's going to turn into a big AI convo here. It's not like, it's not going to steal our jobs. It's just going to be a different way of, it might steal something. It's just going to be a different way of how we work with AI. Like, I don't think it's going away. I had a creative director. He once said he can't wait. He couldn't wait until this phase was gone. Like we had the metaverse and that had a year, and then we had AR and that might have had a year. I'm not sure AI is going to have a year. I think that at some point it maybe will vanish and kind of go off into the distance, but it'll affect us ever. Speculation says, we're probably going to have robots in our houses in, a couple of years here. And then the mass competition to put robots in your house is going to start. I was telling a friend of mine yesterday, he showed me like this new robot that's, I think, coming out of China, and it has like physical moves. It moves like a human. And I'm like, I can't wait till neighborhoods have robot wars where my robot will go beat up your neighbor's robot.
Yeah, I don't want a robot in my house. Anything that looks like a human is creepy to me. Like if it's not a human, it shouldn't move like a human. I don't want anything doing that in my house.
Yeah, it's getting freaky. Like I think it was Boston Dynamics. They have a robot that, they've had an awesome robot for a long time, but now, the Chinese robot came out a couple days ago and he has like human features. He uses AI to balance himself and now
Why?
the United States robot is equally as cool. So we're at robot wars right now. So
I just don't understand why they have to make it human looking. Why can't it just do the same things but not look like a human? I don't understand.
I don't
It's
know.
very creepy to me. It's very
Oh, did you see the Disney ones though? Disney created robots with NVIDIA and DreamWorks or something, and they're so cute. Like they are little robots, and they look so cute. They're like little movies, like in real life. They're like,
I want that.
you got to look that
How
up.
can
The
you
Disney
say that?
robots are adorable. Yeah.
I'm going to look at them. But that's something that I think that's another thing is it's like if they're I'm sure that the robots that the governments are making
Killer Robot.
are
Yeah,
they're not
my
for us.
company's name is Killer Robot, and I was watching a show about killer robots, like autonomous killers that kill with AI. Pretty scary.
So, do you have you ever seen the show Love, Death, and Robots?
I love that. Now that's
I
art.
love that show.
Like, that's
That reminded me
masterpiece.
of your work. Beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous.
But
Gorgeous
that
show.
kind of
Really
reminds
nice.
me of your brand.
Oh, nice. Them.
But that is yeah, I think the governments are creating robots for the people. So I think that maybe that's why they're terrifying to me is that, if they were marketing them to the average Joe, I think they'd make them cute like Disney robots, but not
Just another thing that I saw is so fighter pilots, right? So they have we're kind of digressing to all this like craziness. Future tech. They have like this fighter jet that runs with AI, and they had a dogfight with a human and the AI fighter jets, fully enabled. The human cannot beat an AI in a fighter jet, in a gunfight with a fighter jet. The AI maneuvers the plane in ways that humans can't withstand, the gravity and all this stuff. Like, so once we have fighter jets that could kind of fly to other countries and they're fully autonomous and they can think on their feet and kill on their feet, game over. And that's probably like they're already
More
testing that
terrifying.
stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, like drones were the start of it. I mean, we're getting to scary war times, but it's alright. It's alright. I mean, I
there's
think
lots of
that
things to be talking
anytime
about.
something, yeah, I like to be hopeful that every time something really, if I don't know if I should say something really bad happens, but when something is created that is maybe too much, I think that a lot of times we kind of realize it and go back, I guess, if that makes sense, or just a trend, I suppose.
Well,
Like, you know what I'm saying?
so we're talking about, I mean, we're not talking about graphic design anymore. We're talking about AI.
Yeah.
AI. I could never stop talking about AI. So one of the things about like what I set to do with this company Killer Robot is AI for the greater good, right? So when you think about, of course, you have the negative side, the humans are using AIs to do bad things. But then another thing that we're working on right now is patient care, right? So like you could use AIs to kind of help somebody live well and engage with their doctors, and doctors engage with you and get data and being able to analyze your x-rays and your MRIs using vision AI and all this. Like we're actively working on projects that will do that one day for people. Like when you're a little kid, they'll run a 23andMe on you. They'll figure out like what makes you tick, and and make sure that you're well your whole life and the way that you're getting medication. Like that's like a beautiful thought, right? Like no more mistakes in your diagnosis. You don't get the wrong medicine anymore, and it's a little bit better. Your life's a little better. Like I kind of like AIs for stuff like that.
Yeah, that is a beautiful thought. I definitely think that there is so many things. I think maybe it's your perspective on humanity sometimes is there's so of the way that you look at advancements because a lot of people will see an advancement, especially in technology, and assume that it's going to be used for harm. And a lot of times it is, historically, unfortunately. But there's also a lot of examples of it being used for good. And I mean, that is, the scientific exploration is for the advancement of humanity, and whether that's for good or for bad is kind of depending on who gets their hands on it. And I hope that with the advancement of AI, more people have access to it to work on it for good. Because I think that the every average day person, rather than a person in power, will more likely try to use it for good than maybe a government. So
Yeah.
it is very lovely to see those kind of advancements, because it's true. There's so many things that are not addressed in the medical field solely because we are humans and we can't think of everything at once. Whereas AI can probably scour the internet for these symptoms, find so many different things that could maybe be wrong and address all of them, rather than a doctor misdiagnosing you, not even because they're like it's malpractice. It's solely because they're just a human being that thinks of that thing first. Or and that could be such an amazing tool to utilize.
So we're playing right now. I have one of my close coworkers that I've kind of brought into our team. He's a data scientist and just an amazing programmer. I gave him a pair of Meta glasses yesterday, right? So Meta glass, you can take pictures, you can kind of hear the AI through your ear, and it works with the Meta AI, right? So what my dream is jailbreaking those suckers and having them work with my AI for doctors, right? So like I go into my medical clinic, my doctor's wearing a pair of Meta glasses, and he can ask for a diagnosis or ask for the latest research on a particular some research on a particular ailment, and he could get feedback right away. He could use his glasses to take pictures of a thing. The AI reads the feedback and it can give him a diagnosis beyond his own understanding instantly. So those are some things that I'm thinking about that I want to make.
That would be incredible. I would really, really look at. I'm happy to send it on a hopeful note. We went into war a little bit, but I'm happy how we ended.
Let's cure cancer.
Yeah, exactly. No, AI it does have the ability to do a lot of good things. And of course, with technological advancements, there will always be harm that is done. I think that
And
is
bias is
yeah,
also harm, right? So like
yeah,
our own insecurities, the way our society is, like we feed that into the
exactly. But I think that with bad there's always good. And we are a little over time, so I will be cutting us off right now. But I'm happy that we ended on a hopeful note, because this is absolutely the capabilities, I think, sometimes of the capabilities of something I think really worries some people. And I think that it definitely is the way of thinking. It's hard to not think of the bad things, but I also think that it's nice to recognize what something is capable of for the better of humanity. And I think that addressing those things, thank you for bringing them up, because I don't think about them all the time either.
Well, you said we're over time, but I thank you for reaching out to me. Like this is awesome.
This is incredible. We can definitely do this again sometime. I would really love to pick your brain more about this, because this was very fun.
Yeah, anytime. Just give me a holler.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching and or listening. Don't forget to check out other episodes to get to learn like I get to do from this podcast every time. Thank you so much, James. I really appreciate you again. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.